Well, what would be the signature classic dessert if it weren't chocolate blackout cake? My method for this cake is a little bit backwards. Typically, you start with butter and sugar that you beat together, and then you alternate your wet and dry ingredients, and then you add in your chocolate at the end. I actually start with the dry ingredients. I'm gonna sift 2½ cups of all-purpose flour into my bowl, and I'll just give it a little sift just to make room for the 1 cup of cocoa powder. This is regular cocoa powder, not Dutch process. And 2¼ teaspoons of baking soda. And 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And then to that, 1½ teaspoons of fine salt. And now I add my sugars to the dry mixture. First, 1¼ cup of white sugar. I know these are large-scale proportions, but this is a large-scale cake. And 3/4 cup of dark brown sugar. It adds a molasses depth to the taste of the cake. Now, first I'll give this a little mix to blend it. And now I actually add the butter to the dry mix as opposed to the other way around. And I need 1 cup of unsalted butter. There we go. So I've got that cut in pieces. And now I let the mixer do the work, and on low speed at first, cut in the butter into the mixture. There we go. And now for the moisture, 2 eggs, and 2¼ cups of buttermilk. Now, it's very important when you're making a chocolate cake, because I'm using melted chocolate, that all of the ingredients are the same temperature as that melted chocolate. So at the very least, room temperature. I'll break my eggs into my buttermilk and add 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla, and just whisk this together. So the best way to keep your bowl in place is I wrap a damp towel around the bottom of the bowl. I'll add the liquid slowly and on low speed first. And there's something about this method, starting with the dry and then adding the liquid last, that makes a great cake batter. I want to increase the speed to high and whip the batter for about 3 minutes. That's a good-looking cake batter. But we're not done yet. 6 ounces of bittersweet chocolate that I melted first before I started pulling my other ingredients together. I've got my 3 cake pans, 8-inch cake pans that I've greased the sides of, put a piece of parchment in the bottom of, and then greased the parchment too. And I like to use a measuring cup to dole out or portion out the batter. That way, I know I get it evenly divided. And I just spread the cake batter into the edges of the pan. I've got my oven preheated to 350, and these cakes take 40 to 50 minutes to bake. And a very important step is to actually let the cake cool at least 30 minutes before you run a knife around the outside and turn it out to cool completely. It's time for chocolate frosting, which, okay, let's be honest here. This is the whole reason we make chocolate cake. And that's why I made 3 layers worth of chocolate cake. And I'm gonna slice those layers into half so I've got room for a double batch of chocolate frosting. So I've got 3 cups of unsalted butter and 8 ounces of cream cheese at room temperature. And now I get to add to this mass of butter and cream cheese 24 ounces of bittersweet chocolate. Yes, 1.5 pounds of bittersweet chocolate. So first I'll pour in a little and mix it gradually. best. Okay, I've sifted 4 cups of icing sugar, and I'll add that about a cup to start. And 2/3 of a cup of cocoa powder. And this really punches up that chocolate taste. A pinch of salt lightens up the sweetness a little bit, and have to add some vanilla. Yum. This is the perfect consistency to spread on many, many, many cake layers. And I've got my cooled cakes. And it's great if you can pick up a Lazy Susan like this. It makes the cake do all the work. I can just slide it. Now I can peel off the parchment. I want 6 layers of cake with frosting in between. The best way to cut cake tiers is to turn and slowly cut inward until you feel the cake move. And then use this to lift it off. Look at that beautiful, moist cake interior. So let's hide it with some frosting. Now, I can slide on the next layer. It's time for that last outer layer. It's easier to put on extra frosting and pull it off than it is to keep adding more. So I like to put a ton, making it as level as I can on the top. And all that frosting that sort of peeked out the sides now can join up. This is designed as a bowl scraper, so I can bend it. Put the flat edge along the side of the cake and just run it around the side and get a clean edge. And what you want to do is make a nice little holdable piping bag. All I simply do is I bring the points of the triangle together. So I fold around and down on one side. You just wrap it around itself. You bring it together and together and together. And you see all those tips join, and there's your cone. I've melted some baking white chocolate. A little goes a long way. Just need a bit. I do want to trim it. And I've got a birthday cake befitting a special occasion.